Welcome back everyone, Garrett Stewart here with Keller Williams, and for this video I just really wanted to talk about COVID-19 in the real estate market and answer a few questions that you may have right now. So let's take a look and see what there is to discuss. So the first question I want to answer is, when is the economy going to recover? And to answer this, first of all, I want to say we're not, the economy in itself of the real estate market, it's more hit on a pause button right now. So we're still going to see sales, we're still selling homes. There are some restrictions here in Nevada. We're not allowed to show tenant occupied homes, but we can show any other home. We just take a lot more precautions, relying a lot more on video and things like that. So we can still sell homes. We can talk about writing a contract and not even seeing the home until after they accept your offer and make it contingent on that. So we can get really clever on things to keep you safe at this time, because I know that's really important right now. But again, the economy basically just hit the pause button. Now, looking at some of these big names you might recognize, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Morgan Stanley are all predicting our GDP to go down for the next quarter. And then we're going to see, this is a very traditional shape we'll see in recovery of a pandemic, is a V shape. So we'll hit that low point and then we're going to spike back up relatively quickly. So that is good news. We should recover relatively quickly when this is all over. When that time frame is, it's still up in the air right now. If we all stay good and stay at home, stay in isolation, and practice our social distancing, it'll be sooner rather than later. But we do anticipate a strong, quick recovery. Now, are we going into a recession? Now, I can't confirm that that's going to happen, but we are likely to see a market slow down in all of the other areas. So some of the predictors are that we are likely to go into recession, but we'll see what actually happens. But I do want to stress, recession does not equal a housing crisis. Now, I know our last recession was caused by the housing market and a housing crisis, but that does not correlate to that. And actually, if you look at this slide here, you can see out of the last 5 recessions we've been in, only 2 of them lost equity in the home prices, and 3 out of the 5 actually went up. So I do want to stress that just because we hit a recession does not mean our home prices are going to start dropping. And obviously the last one there on 2008, almost 20% drop in home price, that was caused because of the housing market and the poor mortgages that were put out there and things like that. So that one caused the recession. Everything else was different matters. So is this going to be like 2008 in the housing crash? Absolutely not. If you look at this, this is leading up to the housing crash. We can see that the home price appreciation, because of that housing crash, went down, year after year. And look at the S&P, it dropped 51%. Now let's look at the dot-com era and the 9/11. What happened after that, and we went into a recession. Saw the S&P drop 45%, so almost the same as we did during 2008. But look at the appreciation. Year after year, homes appreciated. So I just want to point that out and make sure, homes are still appreciating even during a recession. All right, looking at leading up to the housing crash, you can see homes were appreciating year after year leading up to the big boom and bust of 2006, and then leading up to where we are the last 6 years. So comparing these two 6-year gaps, you can see that homes were appreciating a lot faster in those last 6 years leading up to the bubble pop. And versus now, we were seeing a lot more healthy growth and appreciation. Now, these numbers are nationwide statistics. I understand numbers here in Reno grew a little bit faster, but on a nationwide level, which is what's more measured for recession, we had a lot more healthy growth of where we should be. So we're not seeing these big numbers, pie in the sky type appreciation levels nationwide. Also, one of the big things that, like I mentioned earlier, that caused the recession in 2008 was the poor mortgages that were put out there. It's a lot easier to get a mortgage back in 2005, 2006, and then so the higher the number is on this graph here, the easier it was to get a mortgage. You know, you didn't have to necessarily prove that you were making income to pay off your mortgage. So, you know, some places were doing stated income and things like that. That got a lot more restricted, and so now we see it a lot lower to what it is today. It's 181 versus where it was at its peak was 868. So significantly lower and a lot more healthier way to give out mortgages. Also, a big part of why we had people defaulting on their mortgages is because they took out equity on the home. So when the home prices did start to decline, they lost that equity that they had in their home. They were out there buying boats and RVs and vacations. And look at leading up to that bubble pop, in the last 3 years of that boom in the market, $824 billion of equity was taken out, cashed out like an ATM basically on your home. They weren't putting it back into their home either. They were spending it on things they shouldn't have. And now you can see, look how much lower these cash out equity loans are. 232 billion in the last 3 years versus the 824 billion. So significantly less. Now you're gonna be like, well, maybe they had more equity then. Well, actually look at this. Over 50% of, almost 54% of all homes in America have at least 50% equity. What's even more fascinating is 37% of all homes are owned free and clear. They don't have a mortgage on it anymore. And out of the 26.7% of the mortgaged homes have at least a 50% equity. So homes do have a lot of equity right now, and people aren't taking out as much right now, which is very good and healthy, because if we see homes prices fluctuate a little bit, they're not going to be stuck. They have some equity in their home, and that's the great thing about home ownership. Now, what about all these job losses? We see a lot of jobs getting lost right now, just either furloughed or laid off, and we want to be able to make sure, see what's going to happen with all that, because obviously if they don't have a job, they can't get a mortgage. So looking at this big peak, I mean, look at this graph, and since the late 60s, you know, we stayed relatively under 1 million for people getting jobless claims. Well, and then we peaked up here and over 6.5 million people. And so we see a lot of people laid off or furloughed. Well, look at the industries that are the biggest ones that were laid off. You can see that over almost 60% were in the food, service, and drinking area. You know, these are servers and bartenders. And construction workers are down there as well. Healthcare offices, those are like things like dentistry, you know, elective type surgeries, things like that. So we did see a lot of these people get laid off. Well, they're all going to come back into the market once we talk about that V curve that happened or is going to happen. Well, with that V curve, that's going to bounce back, and pretty much we're going to see a lot of these people come back into the industry relatively quickly. Now, when I say that, you can see here's the 2020 prediction for unemployment rate. 2020, you know, we're going to be 15%, and then it's going to drop relatively quickly over the next couple of years. You know, it's not going to be back at where we were a couple months ago instantly. They might not be able to recover as fast, but we're going to be able to put most of the people back to work and get people back working. So that's the important thing to consider, and hopefully we'll see the economy booming really quickly. And so if you have any questions about this, and the last thing I really want to stress about actually is, again, while the market is paused right now, I mentioned the market's kind of the pause button, we're not paused as real estate agents. We are out there still working for you and answering your questions about the real estate market. So hopefully this helped. If you have any questions on this though, about real estate and how it's getting affected by COVID-19, feel free to reach out. My information's right there below. You can watch any of my other videos over here on the side, and you can see my market report for April right here as well. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Stay safe out there.